Mm. Ooh. All right. Welcome, everybody, to another WineShark Wednesday. It is I, your host, the WineShark. Hope you guys are doing well. We are fine here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. There's been some crazy flooding. We got like a month's worth of rain in a day. That's what I read on the news. So things have been a little crazy, but the temperature's been nice, and we needed the water. Although, like most cases, maybe not all at once. So I hope you guys are doing well and enjoying your final days of your dog days of August. We just had an excellent event up at McKinney at the Sip and Stroll last week. I want to say thank you to Events with Amy for inviting us to do that show and for all the wonderful people that I met. Also, our host, Kelly's Art Shack, was amazing. And we got to meet a lot of people. We spoke in our 80s theme. We had Sutter Home White Zinfandel as our theme because, well, talk about popularizing in the 80s. That was a classic thing. So anyway, it was a lot of fun. Met a lot of people. Got to talk wine with some folks, shake hands. Great times, just really and great to be out and about and engaging with so many fun and different vendors out at the area as well. So again, really fun stuff. Hope you guys can join us for our next sort of event like that. But yeah, today is the final part of our 5-part series because in arbitrary number 5, and I decided we're going to be doing the last of our mass market wines that are worth trying. For those that maybe just catching up on that, normally we do our grocery store grab, and the grocery store grab is focused on label focusing. What I did this last 5 series is kind of focus on wines that have a high degree of distribution, of ubiquity, just pretty much everywhere, and really focusing on whether we could, whether you could rely on a brand name sometimes instead of just looking at your label focus as well. Sometimes names are hype, sometimes they're quality. We've done a bunch of different names that I have certainly in my wheelhouse called what I call a known good. They've been consistent producers over a course of years. They're maybe not the best in class, but they're certainly the great choice when you are faced with a last minute option and not many choices. Sometimes big brands can come to save your bacon. So we're going to be talking about Sebastiani today in that regard. So anyway, but on that, in the research I was doing the other day regarding Bob Trinchero and his creation of White Zinfandel, I came across another side topic that was rather interesting, and that is the concept of the spinning cones. Sounds very sciencey and very tech, and so I did some research. Apparently, Bob Trinchero, who by the way was the creator of White Zinfandel back in 1975. His family later on, he also went on to pioneer some research in the 90s of what's called spinning cone technology. And we're going to talk about how that affects and what that does. Why is that cool? But the basic premise of what this technology is used for is for low and no alcohol wines, or what the industry calls NOLOs. And the no-low wine movement is something that's very kind of interesting in the wine world. It's this funky, sort of adjacent, nearby, but potential market for a lot of winemakers. So we're going to talk just briefly about what it is, talk a little bit about spinning cone technologies, and talk about some of the pros and cons that the no-lows bring to the table. So without further ado. So as we said, low and no alcohol wines. What are they? Well, obviously they are wines that have a lower percentage of alcohol or completely alcohol free. Lower percentage of alcohol being that usually in the 7-6% range. So the lower you can possibly get. Although some wines are considered low in alcohol, and they're basically below 10 as far as the wine industry is concerned. But we're talking about even lower than those. We're talking about alcohol-reduced wines or completely alcohol-free products. The other thing that got this spurred in my brain was I was doing a sparkling wine presentation last month, and it came about I had a alcohol-free cava that I researched when I was getting ready to do the show. It was one of our 9 different sparkling selections, and that really got me kind of alerted to the concept, because what was wonderful about this wasn't just your Welch's sparkling grape juice. This is wine that's made through the actual wine process and then has the alcohol removed. Okay, what that means functionally is you've got you've got a very different thing than simply just a wine substitute. So first thing is the reason that the other thing that this interested me is because marketing across the world is really growing. The 2021-2022 segment of no-los has been growing like a weed within the industry. Trends towards younger generations, younger generational drinkers, in other words, in that 18 to 25 year age range, depending on what country you're in and what your legal drinking age is. The industry focuses a lot on what they call that LDA, that legal drinking age group, especially in preparation for what their trends might be when they reach their drinking age. So marketing has been doing a lot of research on this, and there's been a huge uptick in pushing towards lower alcohol wines and lower alcohol beverages in general, as well as completely alcohol-free options. So that means the market has more to offer now than it kind of ever has before. Most of us throughout our lives have grown up with things like near beer or O'Doul's or de-alcoholic, non-alcoholic beer. There's a brand called Free, FRE, which is a non-alcoholic wine that's been around for some time. But generally speaking, these aren't taken as a serious beverage within the context of that particular beverage market. There's not just the fact that they don't have alcohol, but there's a lot of pushback. So before we talk about the wheres and wherefores, though, let's talk about this spinning cone technology for a minute. Spinning cones is one of several methods that can use to take alcohol out of wine. Most of the functional methods seem to be still in the state of being trade secrets. A lot of folks don't share their methodology about how they remove the alcohol from their wine. So, but spinning cones just is a broad spectrum of how they work. They basically started off in like 1993. Again, Trinchera did all this research. It was finally approved by the FDA. So it was approved in the U.S. and they started making these products. What it does is it uses a series of rotating and stationary, quote, cones in this tall, narrow stainless steel tank, basically called a spinning cone column. And what they do is a combination of gravity and nitrogen injection separates the essential, what they call the essential essence of the wine. Very, very high-techy. But they strip the wine of about 5% of its aromatic and flavor elements. They use that nitrogen and science and gravity to separate this stuff out. And then they put the wine back through in a secondary process to remove the alcohol from the wine, and then they take those two things and recombine them at the end. So what they're doing, and as I said, effectively, is they're taking all that volatile stuff that fermentation produces that gives wine its distinct and unique flavor. They're saving it from the de-alcohol process so that it doesn't get destroyed as well. They're taking just then what's left of the grape juice / alcohol, spinning it down, knocking the alcohol out, and then recombining to say, aha, here is this now a new flavor package. So it's not a simple thing. But the pros to this, the reason the market has grown so much is that it's calorically friendly. It's friendly towards drinkers who want to drink in moderation, either for their own particular, whether it's just their own reasons, ethics / morals / needs. They want to have a glass of wine and be safe to drive, that sort of thing. It's also tax friendly in a lot of markets, meaning because alcohol is what's taxed, these products are something that wineries can sell that doesn't get taxed in the same way. Potentially, it's tapping into a market share that they never had before. So that wine and wine adjacency is something that's really kind of in this exploratory mode. Obviously, we've talked about flavor malt beverages and the explosion within that, but these are all alternative revenue sources for various alcohol industries that they can create new products that especially that newer generational drinkers are starting to embrace and enjoy, rather than some of the old traditionals. The other pro of this, of course, is that these things are what I quote, quote unquote, real wine, meaning those flavors that are created during fermentation are still present in the product. Unlike a lot of other, faux wine substitutes, you have an actual wine product here, and you get those aromas and those flavors. Now, we can argue about how that's affected by the scientific process of this, but still, it's a very significant step above other substitute options. Now, the cons, of course, are number one. There's the fact that a lot of people have a perception of low quality of these products. They definitely have been marketed at a budget friendly point. A lot of that is because there's resistance to people paying the same price for a non-alcoholic wine because somehow they perceive that the alcohol is what they're paying for, which, in a sense, especially from the tax man is concerned, is actually true. But the price problem is really not easy to solve because it is still complicated to create and produce, and so you can't just price it low so that where is it competing in the marketplace and what is it competing with? Because price oftentimes affects our perception of quality. They can't. We have market resistance to people paying $20 for a bottle of alcohol-free wine because they're going, well, why would I pay for that when I just get a regular bottle for $20? Yeah, that's kind of their big challenge there. The other part is, you might say that that's some overhandling their squirrely dam. All that spinning cone process or whatever other process that they use, that's a lot of work on the wine. And a lot of our fine wines, a lot of the object of the game is getting out of the way of the grape. Yes, you want to use science to handle it, with reliability, with good sanitation and all these things, but you also kind of want to use as minimal of that as is safe to get a quality product time and time again. So that challenge itself can form a unique problem, right? So the overhandling problem might be something you're looking at. And then last, of course, is they said, or actually, it's kind of a dovetail to the first one, about market perceptions are low of these products. Sometimes, a lot of the polling that had been done say that the products don't taste the same, that they simply have a lack of alcohol, and that's a barrier to purchase, or even lack of access, that people don't have a lot of options, that you only have that one brand. I mean, for instance, non-alcoholic beers, all I can think of is O'Doul's and there's that other one that Guinness produced. I think it was called Clipper. But, it's not like there are dozens of brands with different flavor profiles of this stuff that's out there. So they've got that challenge too. So it's really an interesting kind of problem. The other one that they're trying to deal with is, where on the shelves does this go? Is it wine, even though it doesn't have alcohol? Does it go beside wine is it because that's what you're competing with? Does it go in a separate section where low and no alcohol beverages go to give it distinction from wine so that people can go and browse that section if that's what they're looking for? It's a very interesting series of problems that the industry is facing in the no-low world. But I think you're going to see more and more of these products available, definitely aiming at a higher quality marketplace that are really designed as substitutes for people who don't really care about the alcoholic effects of wine, but do want to experience the taste and the social aspects of wine. So look for more of those in the future. I might be trying to bring out a couple of these on the show just simply for hey, let's go ahead and try these out. It was already suggested when I discussed this with my sister that I make sure I bring one to Thanksgiving for my niece and nephew to critique. So I'm sure I'll get their feedback as well. But anyway, so no-low wines are something you got to check out, and we'll get more to that. Next up, the wine quiz. So our wine quiz, brought from a board game called Wine Wars, is a fun way to basically stump the chump, yours truly, and ask fun questions about wine. Oh, I didn't see you there, Mr. John Kerry. Hello to you. So, our wine quiz, 5 different categories. Basically, very similar to Trivial Pursuit. It's got a basic categories of Vine to Vino, which is about growing grapes, making wine, and world wine production. We've got the Graposphere, which is about grape varieties, their wines, and their geography. Then we have Wine Cellar, which is about the storing, selecting, and tasting of wine. We've got Wine and Food, which is cooking with wine, wine and food pairing, and wine service. And then lastly, Court Culture, wine people, wine business, arts, sciences, and trivia. So, dropped the card. But we have our card for today. So, our quizzings. Dun. First from the Graposphere. What gas is a natural byproduct of fermentation and creates bubbles in the sparkling wine? What gas is a natural byproduct of fermentation and produces bubbles in sparkling wine? This should be a gimme. Basic fermentation question. Anybody? All right. John's like, no, I'm sleeping. Answer is carbon dioxide. Yes, carbon CO2 is the byproduct naturally of fermentation, and it creates our bubbles. All right, next up. What is the principal red grape variety the principal red grape in Italy's great Tuscan wines? Chianti Classico, Vino Nobile di Montepulciano, and Brunello del Montalcino. All right, what is the principal grape? Chianti Classico, Vino Nobile di Montepulciano, and Brunello del Montalcino. This is a key one. Remember, Chianti is not a grape. Chianti is a region. So we have that whole process that we think about. But all those three grapes, in fact, actually, when I was talking to somebody about liking good Chiantis, I actually, since the changeover, since Chiantis are now no longer required to be blended by DOC regulation, but I definitely prefer Vino Nobile di Montepulciano because they are generally still blended. But the answer is Sangiovese. Yeah, Sangiovese, your blood of Jove, that is your core grape for Chianti, Vino Nobile Montepulciano, and Brunello del Montalcino. All right, next up, which bottle size will help a wine age most gracefully? A standard 750 milliliter bottle or a 1.5 liter Magnum bottle? Well, hello there, Mr. Mark and Ms. Betty. Good to see you too. So which bottle size will help a wine age most gracefully? A 750 or a double size, a Magnum? This is interesting because the answer to this, in my knowledge, has more to do with whether the wine is sparkling or not. But, answer here, I'm going to go ahead and say the Magnum. It definitely is true for champagne and sparkling wines, the larger format. You don't want, like for instance, you don't want splits of champagne lasting for very long. Those little tiny bottles that you get for your solo service on brunch, those are not designed to age, whereas big Magnums are definitely designed to age. So it says Magnum bottles. Headspace being equal, there is less oxygen per volume in the larger bottle. So, but yeah, so interesting. I mean, about really age-worthy. Although, the interesting thing is, I mean, if that was true in the still wine world, a lot of the super fine wines, I think you'd see more Magnums out there, but they're really not that common outside of places like Bordeaux. You know, I mean, they're not uncommon, mind you, but all the stuff you ever see, like at auctions, etc., are all 750s. So, anyway, all right. What is the name of the shallow silver wine tasting cup, sometimes worn by sommeliers in upscale restaurants? What is the name of the shallow silver wine tasting cup, sometimes worn by sommeliers in upscale restaurants? You'll see these. They'll usually be around a silver chain. They'll sometimes wear them around their neck. At first glance, they often look like, why is that person carrying an ashtray around their neck? At least I've heard that comment when I've worn mine. Although I've only worn mine as part of costuming, never as part of my real sommelier job, if you will. All right. Any guesses? It's that silver cool thing. The name is German in origin. It is called a Tattwein. All right. Yes. Tattwein. Tastvvein. Tattwein. Yeah. So Tattwein, it's this narrow, this little shallow silver bowl. Looks like a flat cup, and then it often has dimples on the bottom. It has these little. It looks like there's these little hemispheres all there, and it comes to a high polish. What it was originally used for is for checking wine clarity in dark cellars. The reason it was silver and highly polished and you had those dimples in there was to catch and refract light so that you could, by candlelight, be looking at a wine in the cellar, pour it into the Tattwein, and make sure that it was actually aging properly and looking of good color and quality. So it's an old school traditional thing. The ones you'll see usually now are very ceremonial, not meant for practical use. I'm going to put it in the chat here for the how they have it. Tatvan. All right. Now, last but not least, maybe instead of that spelling, I wonder if that version is actually might be French, not German. I have to look up the I'm gonna have to look up the origin again. I may be wrong on that one. But final question: what New York City wine school was founded and taught by Kevin Zraly through 2 separate terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center? That is the strangely worded question. What New York City wine school was founded and taught by Kevin Zraly? The fact that it survived 2 terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center is interesting, but I don't see where it's relevant, other than saying, hey, it was at the World Trade Center back when we had one. All right, and the answer, World of Wines. Why not? I mean, that's all I've got. I do not have any idea what this thing is. Windows on the World Wine School. Well, I got world part right. Not bad. All right, it's 4 out of 5 today. Not a bad showing by yours truly. Always a good time to judge what. And I like some of those. Those are good wine geek trivia knowledge. Tot Finds, for instance, is a weird and interesting thing. So we're going to move then on to the grocery store grab. As we said, this is the last part of our wines worth trying from the mass market. We're going to be digging into Sebastiani. But the grocery store grab, for those that are unfamiliar, is our attempt to get into basically wines that are purchased at non-big box and non-specialty stores to get your best value per dollar at places where you may not necessarily have the best wine assistance available. We want to be practical about our wine drinking, and if you, for convenience, happen to shop at the grocery store, we really focus on label focusing, on making sure that the labels tell us what the bottle holds, what is it going to taste like, where is it from, and what detailed information do we need so we can make good choices. So our example today is an old school cool. It is Sebastiani's Cabernet Sauvignon from the North Coast. Yes, indeedy. Sebastiani is an old school name, and one that's a little fraught I have found in my career. With like many other popular California brands that produced bulk wine in the 70s and 80s and then transitioned to premiums, they got that lingering stigma. So places like Beringer and Sebastiani and BV have got, because they are so grocery store labeled in the early parts of their history, it was difficult sometimes for people to remember that they've always had, or some of them have always had, and some of them have transitioned to the more premium wine category. So Sebastiani says here on the label, you see it says a Sonoma tradition, was located. I think I guess the word recently. In the last few years, they have sold off the downtown Sonoma winery location. There was due to some problems with the city growing up around it. Basically, getting the trucks in and out of the place had become problematic in the little neighborhoods that surrounded it. But it was one of the oldest continually operating wineries in California. They survived prohibition by producing communion wine. One of the few California wineries that did that. So remember, there's a difference between a winery that survived prohibition and one that was continuously operating. Many wineries that I know of made it through prohibition in one piece. They just, with all of their vineyards, they just weren't making wine at the time. They were using their grapes for other purposes. Sebastiani was an actual case where they made it through the whole thing. The original operation by Stefan Sebastiani. It's not August. August was the one that really blew up the business and got things going. But his father started with a 500-gallon redwood barrel. He bought this winemaking equipment back in 1904, started making wine, and thus began the Sebastiani wine journey. 4 generations of California wine producers, up to Bobby Sebastiani today. So this is their Cabernet Sauvignon, and their label here, I can definitely feel that they're aiming for that that premium, popular premium category prestige. Their bottle is a thick glass bottle. It's got a definite weight to it. They got this embossed labeling in a very kind of elegant and simple style. They're not being whimsical. They're not doing the lifestyle marketing thing. they're definitely kind of calling on their roots and their history. On the back of the bottle here, it says Cabernet Sauvignon North Coast. Sebastiani Vineyards and Winery has been committed to producing great wines in Sonoma County since 1904. Our North Coast Cabernet Sauvignon is sourced from the most ideal growing sites throughout the appellation. This wine is rich and complex with vibrant aromas of blackberry and spices, along with flavors of red fruit and vanilla. Enjoy Sebastiani wine for any occasion. Okay, so as far as our wine labeling is concerned, the way that we tend to think about things in WineShark, that's not bad. They spend more time telling you about their heritage and less about them than they do about the flavor, but they do include practical flavor words. They tell us what grape is in it. They tell us where it is made. They tell us that it is rich and complex with aromas of blackberry and spices, although they didn't tell us what spices, along with flavors of red fruit and vanilla. Okay, so they've at least given us 4 different flavor words there, so we can kind of get ourselves at least in some headspace. A little more specific would be nice, but this is, again, a popular premium category coming in at about $14. So expecting much more than that is generous. Although, as we found, the higher up the price point you get, the more wineries seem to expect that you know what something should taste like, and they don't tell you anymore, which is odd in my book. But yeah, so this is a little cab from North Coast. So the North Coast appellation is that north of Sonoma and Mendocino area in that whole region. Okay, it's a broad area, so this is not a hyper-specific wine. That's one of the reasons that it comes in at the price point it does. But let's go ahead and check this out. Cabernet coloration. I mean, right off the bat, it is a very dark garnet color. Leaves a little bit of staining of the tears when I swirl it around here. You can definitely see the wine's color on the coming down on the tears. It's got pretty decent concentration. Not quite able to read through it, even on my backlit computer monitor. So the colorization is telling us, oh yeah, this is a big bold wine. On the nose, I'm getting hang on. I'm getting black fruits, like I almost want to say like plum jam, and I'm not quite blackberry. I get even more of that darker sense of it, and it smells a bit on that earthy side. It's got a hint of that graphite or pencil shavings thing that we kind of sometimes see in cabs, but just a hint of it. It doesn't have a really robust aroma outside of its fruit. But the fruit is very dominant, very rich, and I said it's that ripe plum jam. Maybe even maybe blackberry, but blackberry jam, not fresh blackberries. So it's got that concentrated fruit power to it. And again, very assertive on the nose. Definitely says, hey, I'm here, pay attention to me. Let's see how we get on with taste. Okay. Big wine. Cabernet Sauvignon. Very, very assertive, very big in your mouth. It has fruit flavor that dominates the front of your palate. Tannins are pretty well integrated. They kind of go throughout. You get them on your cheeks, in the front of your lips, the inside of your lips. Right down the middle of your tongue, it really kind of grabs on and says hi. This is where that plum and blackberry thing really kind of show off, where it says, okay, here's my fruit flavor, here's my offering. There's not much of a finish to it. There's not a lot of extra layers, that spice or vanilla. I'm not really getting much in that oak or vanilla wine here. Yeah, even that there's maybe that tiny hint of sweetness, but it's almost buried in fruit. They're definitely asserting a fruit-forward style here, right? This is not an austere style cab. It's very, very jammy, juicy, kind of very fruit-forward and just kind of in your face. Frankly, typical of the style. Which those are the 3 kind of questions we ask ourselves. Is it well executed? Yeah, the wine is not flawed, right? It's not broken. Doesn't have anything about it that would lead it to be returned to the store. Is it on style? Yeah, this is definitely in that pop premium category, Cabernet Sauvignon. I would argue this is one of the things that people who like Cabernet, generally speaking, really like. And last but not least, is it worth the price tag? Yeah, for $14, I mean, this is a cab that's there. It's one of those, it's competing in a pretty big pool. There are a lot of cabs that are just a few dollars more, $3, $4, $5 more that hit that $20 price point, that $18 to $20 price point, that I would say are superior to this. But this is a quality, reliable, everywhere you go. That's the reason, again, that it's on this featured in this particular show. This isn't about whether it's that best for the dollar. It's the fact that when you see that Sebastiani name, you can rely on it, and you're going to see it damn near everywhere because they're not an exclusive distributor with a producer. You're going to see them at grocery stores, you're going to see them at liquor stores, you're going to see them at specialty stores all over the place. So long as they cater to this price point, you're very likely to see this wine show up. So another success there. I have been pretty impressed that I've taken labels that I know, and because of this, that are widely available. Because, well, being in the industry as long as I have, it's hard to avoid knowing any of these given names. None of these big hitters are people that I've never tried before. However, I am impressed though that throughout this little journey, most of them are still consistently firing with good enough. They are not the kind of wine that's going to hit that you're going to find in the Wine Spectator. You're not going to see any of the wine critics go crazy over it. It's definitely the run-of-the-mill, average, everyday wine drinker's wine, except that it's not that bulk wine BS. These are wines of reasonable quality that you can rely on and that you can be proud to serve at your table, or even be proud to bring in somewhere. Like I said, I wouldn't go ahead and give them as gifts because there's nothing really special about them. They're everywhere, but they're definitely the thing that you can show up to at the party or the dinner party and make sure that you're not embarrassing yourself. So I hope this little series has been kind of fun for you guys. I know it has for me. We've got some more fun topics. We're going to get a little offbeat for the next couple of topics. Like I said, I'm going to try and bring in some of the no alcohol wine, so that may break the grocery store. Well, actually, let's see what the grocery store has for as far as no low wines. We'll try there first, and then we've got a couple of other side projects that are going to come in here pretty soon. So as for upcoming events, this Sunday at the Sleeping Panther, we've got the last of the Dog Days of August wine tasting. It's a bunch of funky, cool stuff. If you guys are interested, come out and try some natty wines and some funky styles of stuff that you may not have tried before. Some of the more esoteric. This is kind of an esoteric wine weekend. Then the Happy Hour Hike on September 1st over at Legacy West Plano. That's going to be a fun little event where I will be sponsoring a booth, so you can come in, get some samples, wave, say hi, and enter into some fun contest stuff. I'm giving away a date night wine tasting. Then we're working on this right now, so it's not completely 100%, but it is highly likely that myself and Two Penny Beer will be hosting over at Agtoberfest on 23-24 September down at Horace Hall in the Fort Worth Stockyards. It's a 2-day event celebrating a bunch of Aggie culture and a bunch of stuff that they're in town for the game versus, I believe it's Arkansas, but I could be wrong on that. But anyway, the Aggies are going to be hosting an event. We're going to do a beer and wine tent out there. Should be a ton of fun. And then, in good news as well, in October through December, yours truly will be back at Reunion Tower. So we're going to be on the Geo deck this time, and the shows are going to be a little later in the evening, about 9 o'clock, but you're going to see me back in downtown Dallas, 534 feet above the Dallas skyline, serving you wine and having a great time. This, by the way, might be a shift up in format rather than a hour and a half class style format that you guys may be used to. This is actually going to be a station-based kind of a sip and mingle kind of thing. That way you don't have to come in exactly on time. You can come in, try different stations of wine and paired foods, just enjoy the wines and really just kind of hang out, kind of get the mood, see the city lights, then go on with the rest of your party evening. So something that's going to be fun and a lot of cool stuff coming up. So if you're interested, check them out on WineShark. Follow us on Facebook. If you like what you see today, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share with a wine-loving friend. So I love the fact that we're going to be seeing each other soon. I hope you guys do so. Look for more information over on Patreon. And until next time, I have been your WineShark. Cheers. Oh, Marco said that Betty's Company had dinners at the Windows of the World on the top of the Trade Center. Nice. Well, a very cool little school there, Mark. So, all right. Well, until next time, guys, like I said, I'm going to go find something that goes with my cab for dinner. I hope you guys have a wonderful evening. Take care.